All right, Jeff Durk with We Are Change Connecticut out here at the 2014 Liberty Forum, and we're here with one of the speakers. He just wrapped up a great discussion, Trevor Timm, Executive Director of Freedom of the Press Foundation and also a former member of Electronic Frontier Foundation. Trevor, thanks for coming out today, and tell us about the talk that you gave and also just some of the information that you gave out today.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, my talk was about press freedom and really the biggest press freedom battle of the 21st century, which is encryption, and whether journalists and sources can protect their conversations before sources end up in jail, or if we're talking overseas, if journalists can be killed. And right now we've seen in the past 6 or 8 years that the government has figured out that they don't need to get journalists to testify against their sources anymore. They can go after their emails, they can subpoena their phone calls without the journalist ever knowing. And so we need to move the battle for press freedom from the courtroom over to those initial conversations. You know, not protecting it after the fact, just after the fact, but also before and during. And so the best way to do that is to encrypt your communications online, whether we're talking about email, chat, phone calls, or any other way you communicate. And so hopefully if we can do that, we can protect the public's right to know, and we can prevent sources from being prosecuted.
Just as a rundown for people who might not be familiar with your work, what got you started involved in this, in journalism and anything? What was your particular turning point for really getting involved?
Well, I think the turning point for me was WikiLeaks, and back in 2010 when they started publishing classified documents that were clearly in the public interest, but that the government reacted to with such hysteria and tried to basically shut the organization down extra legally when everything that WikiLeaks was doing was protected by the First Amendment and stuff that other newspapers like the New York Times do all the time. And so around 2010 I really wanted to start advocating for a more aggressive and public interest centric media organizations, and really explain to people that they had just as many rights to publish the information they do on the internet that people do in print. And so we've seen in the last few years that this is continually escalated. We've seen more and more sources prosecuted, but yet we've seen bigger and bigger stories talking about how the government has all sorts of surveillance capabilities. So, you know, my focus is really where the intersection of surveillance and free speech happens. And so a lot of the work we're doing at Freedom of the Press Foundation is around that. You know, we want to use technology to make it safer for people to communicate, to make it easier to have a private conversation.
And it shows too the trend of more people using encrypted software, but anybody who might not be familiar with it but really want to start encrypting their emails, encrypting their browser history, so any government agency or anybody can't intervene and, you know, get that information, what's the best advice for people that you could give?
Well, so real quickly I can probably say, I'll give you a few acronyms that you can Google later and try to figure out how to use, but one is PGP email, stands for Pretty Good Privacy, and that's the basic way that people encrypt their email. You know, unfortunately you have to encrypt your email, and the person you're talking to needs to know how to do it too. So it's a little difficult, but once you get the hang of it, it's all right. So check out PGP email, or it's also called GPG in other situations. The other is OTR chat, which stands for off the record. And you can download a instant message client like Adium or Pigeon. You can Google those too, and it's very easy to encrypt your chats. Actually, you can get all your friends to download this program. Again, very simple, and once you set it up, it's 2 clicks, and you can encrypt your conversations so no one can ever see them. Even the instant messenger server will just see all gibberish, so Google or Facebook won't be able to read your Gchats or your Facebook chats. And then the other is Tor, which is a web browser exactly like Firefox or Chrome that allows users to mask their IP address so they can hide their location and their identity, so they can browse the web much more anonymously than they can now. So those are the 3 tools that I would probably recommend to anybody starting out.
So tell us a little more, especially about the Electronic Frontier Foundation and also Freedom of the Press Foundation that you're a part of now, for people to learn more about it, the great work that both organizations have done for journalists and for whistleblowers.
Sure. So EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, you can visit their website at EFF.org. It's an amazing organization that I had the pleasure of working for 3 years. They protect your digital civil liberties. So anything you do online that's free speech related or privacy related or copyright and fair use related, they are on the side of the user and fight in court and in the public sphere to protect those rights and to expand them so that we have the same rights online that we do off. The Freedom of the Press Foundation, which you can find at pressfreedomfoundation.org, is my new organization that we started about a year ago. It's on our board of directors is Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, the NSA whistleblower, or NSA journalist, I'm sorry, and Daniel Ellsberg, the famous Pentagon Papers whistleblower, and now even Edward Snowden. And what we really want to do is bring technology solutions to journalism so they can better protect their sources. We're we want to encourage journalism organizations to publish government secrets in the public interest, given that there's this huge overclassification problem in this country where basically entire subject matters are stamped top secret, and so there's no accountability whatsoever. And so we are big advocates for journalism organizations that focus on transparency and accountability. And so, we want to be able to also advocate for them in the public sphere and in the courtroom, but also to help them, bring them technology so that they can better do their job.
Just to wrap up here, your advice for people who may want to get involved in this, but people seem to have a fear aspect of saying that the government might spy the NSA or anything like that. Any things that you can mention from any of your experiences, if they, what you can talk about, or anything else you'd like to add related to that?
Well, luckily, despite this mass surveillance problem that's been exposed about the NSA, we still have a great number of rights in this country. And one of those rights is the First Amendment, which allows you to freely assemble and speak your mind when you disagree with an issue that the government is doing. And so that's what we do at Freedom of the Press Foundation. And, I would encourage everybody to go to our website, pressfreedomfoundation.org. You can learn more about these issues. You can learn how you can contribute to these great open source encryption projects or contribute to us in a variety of ways. Get more informed, share information with your friends and relatives, and the only way that we can make things change is by informing people and speaking out. And so I would just encourage everybody to make sure that they do that, and hopefully in the next few years that means that we can start bringing some real change where sources won't be prosecuted, where we will continue to learn what our government is doing, and hopefully the government will then become more transparent in the way we want to see it to begin with.
I was charged under the Espionage Act. I was turned into an enemy of the state. That was bad enough. At least I still had access to the court of law, to a due process. I had rights. And as much as the government didn't like that.
That's why I personally, the Center for Constitutional Rights, and other people who understand what's going on support truth tellers like Jeremy Hammond, Bradley Manning, Aaron Swartz, and Julian Assange.